Maya Angelou was born Margaret Johnson in St. Louis, Missouri on April 4th, 1928. Her parents divorced when she was 3, and she and her brother traveled to live with their grandmother, who lived in Stamps, Arkansas. When she was 8, she was raped by her mother's boyfriend. Upon revealing what happened, her uncle kicked the perpetrator to death, astonishing a young Maya Angelou as to the power of her words. She responded by silencing her own tongue, refusing to speak for many years, saying later, "I thought my voice killed him. I killed that man because I told his name. And then I thought I would never speak again, because my voice could kill anyone." Angelo credits her teacher, mentor, and family friend, Mrs. Bertha Flowers, with urging her to speak again. Flowers introduced her to writers like Charles Dickens, Edgar Allan Poe, Douglas Johnson, and William Shakespeare. Angela was also introduced to feminist artists like Frances Harper and Anne Spencer. These became artists who would affect her life and work. Out of this fire emerged a young woman who sang, danced, and recorded poetry. She moved to San Francisco when she was 12, along with her mother and brother. Here she took dance lessons and eventually went on to audition for professional theater. Her career took a different turn when she had a son at age 16. She moved to San Diego and became a nightclub waitress, got embroiled with drugs, and dragged into prostitution. Ironically, it was her dancing in a strip club that attracted the attention of a theater group, saving her career. She married a Greek electrician and aspiring musician, Tosh Angelos, in 1951, despite the predispositions many harbored towards interracial marriages, including her own mother. The couple moved to New York City for a brief time so Angelo could study African dance, only to return to San Francisco a year later.
From 1954 to 1955, Maya Angelou toured with the opera in a production of Porgy and Bess, where she played the small role of Ruby. 2 years later, her first album, Miss Calypso, was released. Almost half of this album was Maya Angelou's original work. In 1958, she developed her writing skills and moved to New York, where she joined the Harlem Writers Guild by contributing her unique poetry. She would be working next to many African-American authors in the Guild, including James Baldwin, who would go on to become her close friend and mentor. The very next year, Maya had become somewhat of a civil rights activist, keeping in touch with Dr. Martin Luther King throughout this movement. In fact, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. requested that Maya Angelou be appointed the Northern Coordinator of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. In 1960, she met with a South African civil rights activist, Fasumzi Make. They moved to Cairo, Egypt, where Maya became the editor of the English-language weekly, The Arab Observer. She later moved to Ghana. In 1964, she moved to America to help Malcolm X build his Organization of African American Unity, only for him to be assassinated 4 years later in 1968. After his death, Maya Angelou began working on her autobiographical book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, which was published in 1970. After her book was published, she married Paul DeFew in 1973 and moved with him and her son to Sonoma, California, while working on her writing and acting. After her move to California, she continued to get her work published with works such as Gather Together in My Name and Singing and Swinging and Getting Merry Like Christmas.
The poem Harlem Hopscotch is written in free form and consists of 3 stanzas and a closing couplet. In the poem, she depicts a group of children in Harlem playing a game of hopscotch, which is used as a metaphor to describe the struggles of living as an African American in Harlem. She uses themes of the controversy of poverty and wealth. She insists that everyone is ultimately responsible for themselves in the pursuit of success. At the end of the poem, she states, "Both feet flat, the game is done. They think I lost, I think I won." In this line, Maya sums up her definition of success, and that it is not restricted to material items or monetary success, but rather overcoming life's countless struggles and persevering.
The poem Pickin' 'em Up and Layin' 'em Down by Maya Angelou depicts her belief of how poorly men treat women. This stance probably developed from her negative past experiences with men. Each stanza describes a different woman who is trying to pursue a man, but the man ditches the woman every time the woman wants to make a deeper commitment. The man would seem willing to make this transition with the woman, but he leaves right before he fully commits.
In 1970, Maya Angelou receives the Chubb Fellowship Award at Yale University, followed by receiving the Golden Eagle Award as the first African American in the arts in 1977. In 1981, Maya Angelou divorced husband Paul Defew. In that year as well, she published The Heart of the Woman, which is an autobiography of her life. In 1984, Angelou meets Oprah Winfrey and becomes her friend as well as mentor. In 1986, she receives the Goldbright Program 4th Anniversary Distinguished Lecturer Award. In 1991, she receives the Langston Hughes Medal. In 1993, she was invited to read her poem on the Pulse of the Morning at the inauguration of President Bill Clinton, as well as winning the Grammy for Best Spoken Award album on the Pulse of the Morning. In 1997, Angelou published All God's Children Need Traveling Shoes, followed by publishing A Song Flung Up to Heaven in 2002. In 2006, Maya Angelou receives Mother Teresa Award. In 2008, she becomes the first recipient of Hope of Peace and Justice Voice of Peace Award. In 2010, President Obama awards the Medal of Freedom to Maya Angelou. In 2014, Maya Angelou died on May 28th in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
The poem Caged Bird illustrates a free bird and a caged bird. The poem has a story-like feel that contrasts the freedom of a bird flying with the struggle of the caged bird. For the caged bird in the poem, song is its only way to express itself and fight for the freedom that the bird will never know. The caged bird in the poem is a symbol of the fight for freedom for the oppressed. Angelou herself had to fight to overcome many obstacles herself, and this poem can be seen as a direct message from her to fight for freedom from oppression.